Oh, yes, indeed. Wealthy, healthy, happy people. What's going on? And it's Beatles, and I'm back for another M3RD chart marks. This Forex trading session is March 20th, 2023. And I got a barn burner for you. I do. Because, ladies and gentlemen, there's so much that's going on in the world right now. And if we are not paying attention to what's happening in the financial markets, we are doomed to repeat history. So this session is going to be a special one because what I want to do is I want to help to paint a picture of where money used to be, what it used to look like, how we used to transact with it, and how history has shown us through just some financial forensics investigation that if we are not paying attention, the history is proving to be the same setup for what's currently happening right now. And we got to do something about it. We got to do something about it. And I think the way that we do that successfully is you've got to get the right financial education. You got to get around the right tribe. And from there we really can we can do something, but it's going to take a community to get that done. So with that being said, let's go ahead and get started. All right, so right now the economic ground is shaking beneath our feet. What do I mean by that? What do I mean by that? And is that title death of fiat currency, is that too extreme, do you think? I don't think so. And but here's what I want to do is I want to define what a death of a fiat currency is, because when you start looking back, I mean, thousands and thousands and thousands of um, fiat currencies have been created over the many centuries that countries have been in rulership, and people have been transacting through everything from cowrie beads to corn shell to gold and silver to now the fiat currencies that we're currently dealing with today. And um, what it means when a fiat currency is dying, it simply means that it's losing its backing. And a fiat money currency greatly loses its value should the issuing government or central bank either lose the ability to or refuse to continue to guarantee its value. The usual consequences are hyperinflation. Hyperinflation is something that we actually have seen and experienced over the years. Take, for instance, 2008, when the markets crashed. In order for there to be money in the system, you had to do what was called, central banks had to do what was called quantitative easing at that time. And that's simply printing money out of thin air. Whoa. Is that not what's currently happening right now? I think so. If you look at the banks that are currently dying right now, these small banks that are currently dying right now, and we aren't getting a lot of news coverage, mainstream news coverage on what's happening with these banks, and quiet is kept. And this is how they would like to keep it. They would like to keep it really quiet, because the more that bank failure becomes a mainstream conversation, the more that we start looking for alternatives. Where can I put my money? How do I position myself so that me and my family are insulated from what currently is happening? People start pulling that money out, and they start doing what grandma and granddad used to do, and put that thing in a shoebox. Well, I'm here to tell you that the shoebox is also not where to put it as well. So where do what is happening, Beatles? What how do we take care of this? What do we do? What do we do? I don't know. All right, so here's what we're going to talk about today, right? So a couple things that we're going to discuss. We're going to discuss the history of fiat currency. We're also going to highlight the current market conditions, and I want to outline and help you to identify um, a practical financial solution for where we currently are today. All right, this is what I'm doing for the tribe. You know what I mean? Like, and again, it's not the way, but it is definitely a way. All right, so boom. So let's get into the history, the financial fingerprints, and let's take a look. You know what I mean? Like this, let's take a real analytical look at what has happened over the years, and we're going to start with the gold standard. And the reason why the gold standard is important is because the gold and silver standard, so the bimetallic system, that's when we had silver and gold, and we were transacting in both of those. But specifically, silver was really our liberty currency. And it was our way to establish independence at a time that right around that Revolutionary War time frame. So let's just take a look at the timeline. All right, so in 1776, the United States declared independence from Great Britain. Now this history, this moment in time, when I was going to school, I used to uh maybe fall asleep on it, or what I mean, just not take it so seriously, or I mean. But the more that I have become a, I don't know if a patriot is the right word, what I mean, but understanding that my history is indigenous to this land, it makes more sense to like go back and pay attention to the history, because there are things that have been written into history that aren't necessarily true. And so you've got to do some homework in order to like really dive in and find out who are the antagonists in our historical context, and how do we start really putting the real pieces together. So let's just use the context that we currently have, because we're talking about money in this particular situation, not color, not creed, not religion, not gender, not none of that. You know what I mean? Like, but just help you to understand, one, who the enemy is and still is, and what is happening in our financial system today. So 1776, the United States declares independence from Great Britain, right? 1776, holy smokes. At that time, you had a revolutionary war that was going on prior to that. Then what happens? Then what happens is the Coinage Act of 1792 establishes the U.S. Mint, which allows us to make our own money. It gave the United States central authority over their own money. Why is that important? Because Great Britain was placing taxes, unfair taxes, on the people that they were representing in these colonies around the country. That's why. Right. And so what we were trying to do at that time was we were trying to establish our independence. And again, so the 13 colonies that were up in the north, people started rioting. They started revolting. There was a insurrection, so to speak. There was a militia that was established, small armies that were established, because we were being treated unfairly. And what we were running away from over in England, we were running away from an authoritarian dictatorship, and we tried to find our own little piece right here, right? And I'm just giving it to you from a financial perspective, but giving you some historical context. You know what I mean? So boom. So we had the Coinage Act of 1792, which gave us the ability to actually print our own stuff, and we had our own money. The money that we were using was silver. Silver, silver, silver. This was a hard asset, right? But then in 1834, the Coinage Act of 1834, it boosts the gold and silver ratios from 6 to 16 to 1, and gold starts flowing back into the United States. Now, here's why this is important. Because again, I shared with you that Great Britain at the time was controlling the United States, or at least they were damn near trying to, right? They were trying to take over as people were flowing across the seas and trying to get here, trying to establish something that they could create for themselves. Them followed us all the way over here and said, hey man, we're gonna set up shop. And that's exactly what they did. And so as we were using silver, in order for them to get in control of the treasury, what they did was they established a gold standard. And so they influenced the monetary system by creating new money and making that a competing currency. Gold became a competing currency against silver. And then what they did, because they had so much control over the institutions, the financial institutions, and the media at the time, they started promoting gold as a better form of trade. That's why you see the ratio is 16 to 1. So what also happens at this time, and I'm gonna get into that as well. What you also see at that time is you see this gold rush. This gold rush happens. Right? So the media gets involved, the financial institutions get involved, the perpetrators get involved, and then now all of a sudden we got a mess in our monetary system, and we begin to lose control. So in 1873, the Coinage Act of 1873 officially demonetizes silver and establishes pure gold as the new standard. Holy smokes. But I thought you just said, Beatles, that we were in control of our own treasury. We were when we had silver. But that same enemy that we, again, were fighting that revolutionary war and ended up winning, they never went away. They just played a different game. They came back with a new strategy. They were playing chess the entire time. And so now they start getting in control of our currency again. And in 1933, we have the Executive Order 6102 by Franklin D. Roosevelt, FDR, who confiscates the gold that they just put into the system. They confiscated the gold and the silver that they put into the system. They made those things illegal. They made real money illegal, and then guess what they did? They gave us the dollar, the Federal Reserve note. Is Federal Reserve federal? Well, by now, I'm sure everybody knows that the Federal Reserve is not federal. It's not a government entity, but it's actually a private entity that has nothing to do with the United States government. Whoa. Why has nobody ever told us that? Well, somebody has probably tried to tell you that a couple times, and every time that they try to tell you that there's something going on in the system, something happens to them. People get disappeared all the time. And so we go from a pure gold standard, we'll actually go from a silver standard to a gold standard to a no standard at all to a Federal Reserve note. And that debt note is what we are currently transacting in today. And that is that fiat currency that I was talking about. So now there is a global situation happening because everybody around the world was trusting the United States as the superpower. And as the superpower, they convinced everybody around the world, well, you can just send all your gold over to us because, you know what I'm saying, we have this thing called Fort Knox. It's the best bank in the world. It's the most secure bank in the world. And anytime you guys need your gold, you guys can just holler at me. You know what I mean? And sure, I'll give you your gold back. The United States didn't do that. And Charles de Gaulle, who is the French president, and again, we're going to get into all of this, but I got to give you the history. But Charles de Gaulle, who was the French president at the time, he said, hey, man, I want my gold. And Nixon said, 1971, I don't think we could do that. I don't think we can do that. So that Coinage Act that I was talking about, right? The Coinage Act of 1792, it was George Washington's it was his second presidency, and everybody rallied around him because they were like, yeah, if you don't do something, you know what I mean, like the United States is going to go to shit, you know what I mean? And so they enacted the coinage of 1792. The Revolutionary War was going on at that time, and we actually won. Things like this start to make sense as far as the history is concerned. And then I also realized that it's not so black and white. You know what I mean? Like, again, history is not as it has been depicted in the history books, but he who wins the war tells the story. Right. And the more that the infiltrators became a part of our everyday life, the more that they began influencing our financial systems, then our education systems, then our food systems, so on and so forth. Right. So boom. So the Revolutionary War happened in 1790 and 1792. George Washington was the president at the time. The Coinage Act of 1834 and the crime of 1873 was when we start seeing this shift happen. And in September 1873, a major cornerstone of the U.S. banking establishment declared bankruptcy, setting off a chain of reactions of bank failures and temporarily closing the New York Stock Exchange or the stock market. Layoffs and depressions followed, and panic was felt across the nation. The Panic of 1873 led to business failures and labor tensions, leading to long depressions. See what a few changes in a coin system will cause. All right, so boom. So I gave you the timeline, right? And then and then we're starting to touch inside of each one of these periods in time, just to give you a little bit more context as to what's happening. What happened then is being established now. And I'm gonna lead you all the way into that. But holy smokes, this 1873 situation sounds very much like what's going on today. Again, we get bank closures that are currently happening. We get crashes in the market, right? We're getting crashes in the market. We're talking 300 years later in some cases. 300 years later, and our financial system is looking and feeling very much the same way. And so when we get into talking about the CBDC in just a little bit, oh man, are we not talking about a changing of the way that we transact, how our currency is transacted? Yes, we are. In 1933, Franklin D. Roosevelt with the New Deal, remember, he confiscated the gold, the money that we were using at the time, the silver that we were using at the time. And then they gave us this Federal Reserve note, and that Federal Reserve note dropped 41%, team. It dropped 41%. Whoa. We also had somebody that was advocating at that particular time, William Jennings Bryan, who did the Cross of Gold campaign, where he was speaking to Congress, he was speaking to the Senate, and what he was trying to get passed is a fair usage of silver. Again, silver, that was the stuff that we were using. That was the stuff that we created at our bank that would allowed us to be free, the United States of America to be free. That's what he was advocating for. He was advocating for silver to be just as valuable as gold. And so he pushed for it and he pushed for it, and he got it passed in a couple houses, and he got it passed in a couple meetings. Maybe a bill or two happened, but then there was like, nah, because the people that were in control, Great Britain, the crown that was in control, they shut the shit down, right? They shut that down. So here's what I would recommend that you do: go and look at the Coinage Act of 1834 and the Crime of 1873. It is going to it's gonna blow your mind when you read on it. All right, let's take a look at something else. All right, so remember, 1873. That's when the Coinage Act of 1873 came into play. Now, here's something that I put together. The gold rush of 1849. This is where we get the 49ers from, right? This is where we get the 49ers. Now, in order for people to get word that there is a new opportunity in a new land, what do you need? You need the media in order to do that. Well, in order to shake up the financial markets as well and make gold more appealing, you have to create an event in order for this to happen. Right. And so, again, the people that we are playing against, the financial smart money that we are playing against, they play a completely different type of game. They play chess. They play like an incredible game of chess. And so what I started seeing as I was looking at these different coinage acts and the New Deal and how these things come into play and how we continue to lose control, it is because we are losing control of our financial ability to transact one to another. This is again, Bitcoin becomes important, cryptocurrencies become important, financial assets that are hard assets become important because again, we have players in dark places that are pitting one against another. And while we are doing all of the infighting, what they're doing is they are controlling the gold. And there was this old saying, and I'm sure that you've heard it, and remember the golden rule. And what's that? Whoever controls the gold makes the rules, right? We were transacting in silver. And so they created their own rule. And that rule was whoever controlled the gold controls everything. And so secretly, there was a campaign by the British Crown to destabilize the value of silver monetary system and seize back control over the American system. Holy smokes. So are you saying this whole time, Beatles, from like around the 1849, 1913, 1933 time frame, are you saying that the United States is hijacked? Are you saying that the Federal Reserve is not a part of the government? And if they're not part of the government, then how do they make monetary policy that that we actually have to live by? Like unfair taxes, the income tax, the tax. How are they doing it? How are they doing this? That part I don't necessarily understand. How are they doing that, my guy? And I would say that is a great question. Let me close that trade and I'll tell you exactly. Let me close that trade and I'll tell you exactly how that is being played out right now. All right. You had what's called the Great Depression of 1933. And with the Great Depression of 1933, again, the silver and the gold get confiscated at this time. And the New Deal that was introduced by Franklin D. Roosevelt, who was our president at that time, he was removing the silver and the gold so that they can then introduce this thing right here. So that they can introduce this thing right here, this Federal Reserve note. It can be used for legal tender, but it is not backed by anything. It is only backed by the faith and confidence of the people that actually use this. And so this Great Depression that was going on at this time, as you can see, there are white people in here and there are black people in here. And we're all standing shoulder to shoulder, which is interesting. And we're all protesting together, which is interesting. Right? And it says over here, it says stop evictions, stop shutting off the gas and the lights and the water. They're demanding milk for their children. Isn't this interesting? You know what I mean? Like when we really think about the way that history was, the way that history has been depicted, it appears that white people have been better than black people. Black people come from slavery only. And then everybody else in between, whether you're of a particular religious faith or a background or a particular sexual orientation or whatever, you know what I mean? Like they continue to slice and slice and slice us into these small slivers. And it causes us to fight to fight against each other and not focus on the real problem. But what we currently see, what we see here in this historical picture during the Great Depression, is that there were so many of the 99%. This is the 99%, right? Everybody is the 99%. 2020 showed us that this is the 99%. Everybody in this picture, fast forward in 2020, everybody had a mask on, gloves on, and they were in the house. They were on lockdown, right? They were on lockdown. Wall Street in a panic as stocks crash. 1933. All right, this is actually 1929. That's 1929. But there are some incredible things that are happening at this time. And fast forward after 1933, the next event that happens, the next financial event that happens, there was many things that happened in between, but a major event happens in 1965. Charles de Gaulle, who is this guy right here, who was the president of France at the time, he gave a speech to the international community concerning the need for every country to transact in gold and not the US dollar. And so he started to campaign and make his international affairs known, or make his country's affairs known to the international community. And They simply wanted their gold back. That's it. They just wanted the gold back. That's all they wanted. And President Nixon comes out a few years later in 1971, August of 1971, and Nixon closes the gold window and introduces the foreign exchange market, or the Forex market, which is currently what I transact or trade in right now. 1971 was when Forex became a thing. Many of us, or some of us, are just now being introduced to the Forex market, but it's been around since the 70s, right? It's been around since the 70s, but why? What, like, what was so important about this Forex market? Well, the United States would not relinquish the gold that had been loaned for security, or for safekeeping, from countries around the world that trusted the United States. And you look up the Richard Nixon 1971 gold standard, and what you'll find is that Nixon presented a Nixon painted a picture, of those in the international community, to include Charles de Gaulle, as if they were terrorists that were attacking the United States way of life. Holy smokes, the propaganda! When realistically, all he was asking for was his money back. He said, "Hey man, I'd rather you not hold my money anymore. I'd rather take care of this stuff myself. I want my money back." And Nixon said, "Nah, we're not gonna do that. We're not gonna do that." Fast forward, we have the bank bailouts in 2008, right? The Great Recession by the numbers. We had $30 billion of federal money that was guaranteed at the time. And this was for a deal between Bear Stearns and JP Morgan. You had Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac, who had guaranteed 90% of all of the loans at that particular time. This is the real estate crash, team. And if you've been around for 15, 20 years, you know that this, holy smokes, this was a sham. The real estate markets went through the floor at that particular time, but it were the financial officers that were in places that understood what they were doing. They were packaging up these bad loans and they were selling them off. And then if you had a post, you could if you had a post, you can get a mortgage, you can get a loan, right? But we paid for the mismanagement. Us. Right? We paid for the mismanagement. Baby boomers like mom and dads lost 50% of their hard-earned savings, and it took them about 10 to 15 years in order for them to actually get their money back. Wow. So what do we do? What do we do? And the reason why we were losing money at this time is simply because we weren't financially educated. We didn't know what to look for. And then what we did was we occupied Wall Street. Right? You remember that? We occupied Wall Street for all of the stuff that they had taken from us. Did it work? Did the quantitative easing work? Well, what is quantitative easing again? Remember, in order to prop up the markets, the Fed turned on the printing press and injected a huge amount of new money into the market. And the reason we had the record highs in the Dow Jones and year over year is simply because they were putting money into the market. They were pumping money into the market. And then what was also happening is they were allowing corporate companies to buy back their own stock. Wow. So the Federal Reserve, who is not federal at all, the government, is pumping money into the market, quantitative easing, in order for the markets never to fall or not fall or create a soft landing if the markets are going to crash. All right, all of these buzzwords that the Federal Reserve and the central banking companies use as a way to describe the money printing that's happening, or the controlled demolition that's happening in the financial markets, or the changing of the guards, or the stripping of our liberties and our freedoms through unfair taxation and money printing that is devaluing our purchasing power. All of these things are happening, team, and it's happening in real time. It's happening in real time. And the best way for us to gain control is we have to be educated. We've got to get educated. We just absolutely have to, right? And so the bubble is bursting. Again, the bubble is bursting right now. And what's crazy about this is that this picture, this caption right here, this whole slide, I put together in 2018. This one I put together in 2018, and we're still seeing the same things play out today. We're seeing them play out, right? In 2020, we saw it play out. 2021, we saw it play out. We got more social programs. We got more quantitative easing. We had trillions of dollars that were being printed out of thin air. This is the first time that the United States American really got an opportunity to see the printing press in full steam right in front of our faces. And at that time, we were asking, well, if they could just print the money out of thin air, then why are we paying taxes again? Can somebody tell me why? Can somebody tell me why we're paying taxes again? I don't know. I'm not sure why. I'm not sure why. I'm not sure why we're paying taxes if all they have to do is just print the money, right? Isn't that interesting? If all they got to do is just print it, then why are the taxes seem to be pretty unfair if they can just get it out of nowhere, right? And then the other piece is that we don't necessarily benefit from any of the money that's being printed because it all lands on Wall Street. Main Street gets the crumbs, and Main Street gets the crumbs, and we're left holding the bag. Whoa. So let me tell you what's currently happening right now. All that being said, let me tell you what's currently happening right now in this very moment. The financial landscape is changing again. Here are some of the things that are currently happening right now, and this is why I want you to tune in, tap in, and turn on. All right. So we have the state of the central bank digital currency. This was 2022 in review around the world, right? And there are some different stages or statuses that each of the countries around the world are currently in right now. And the yellow means that things have been launched. So there's a CBDC that has been launched in NGA. That might be Nigeria. Correct me if I'm wrong on that one. Right? Research is currently being done in the United States. We have development being done in Canada, Brazil. The CBDC is currently being piloted in Russia, China, Kazakhstan, Saudi Arabia, South Africa. Shit's popping right now, team. It's happening right now. It's happening right now. All right, let me tell you what comes straight out of the White House. President Biden often summarizes his vision for America in one word: possibilities. A digital dollar may seem far-fetched, but modern technology could make it real possible, or make it a real possibility. The United States Central Digital Bank Currency, or the Digital Bank Currency, or the CBDC, would be a digital form of the US dollar. While the US has not yet decided whether it is going to pursue the CBDC, sure they haven't. The US has been closely examining the implications of the options for issuing a CBDC. If the US pursued the CBDC, there could be many possible benefits, such as facilitating efficient and low-cost transactions, fostering greater access to financial systems, boosting the economic growth, and supporting the continued centrality of the US within the international financial systems. However, a US CBDC could also introduce a variety of risks, as it might affect everything ranging from the stability of our financial systems to protecting sensitive data, right? Sensitive data. You have Kristalina Georgieva, the IMF managing director, Atlantic Council, Washington, D.C. She says that we know that the move towards CBDC is gaining momentum, driven by the ingenuity of central banks. All told, around 100 countries are exploring CBDCs at one level or another. Some researching, some testing, some actually distributing the CBDCs to their public. In the Bahamas, the sand dollar, the local CBDC, has been in circulation for more than a year. Sweden's Riksbank has been developed, and proof of concept is exploring the technology and the policy implications of the CBDC. In China, the digital renminbi, called the ECNY, continues to progress with more than 100 million individual users and billions of yuan in transaction. Team, this is not a scare tactic. This isn't wait and see. This isn't let me think about it. Shit is going down. And it's about to hit the fan quickly, quicker than we think, as fast as AI is currently rolling out right now. And they are getting us very, very excited about this AI and the speed of things actually being rolled out. This is how they come right behind that, by creating an illusion that time is speeding up because the computers are getting smarter and AI is being able to make our lives easier. Then the ease of things also becomes the CBDC. And if they are creating robots, what are the robots are going to use for currency? Probably a digital currency called the CBDC, right? Because they're going to create robots that actually work. And I'm sure that they're going to try to treat them as human as possible. And so the robots are going to earn something, right? Or the manufacturers that create these robots that will be paid when those robots are hired by third-party companies to do work. And so the robots that are being lent out or hired out, they get paid. In turn, the company that created them and manufactured them also get paid as well. These are things that are happening, Tim. They just are. They're happening, and we have to be smarter about what we're going to do in order to get in front of this as quickly as we possibly can. And so the financial solution is you got to learn the game, right? And so I've been day trading for the last 6.5 years, and I put some dope ass proprietary stuff together. And what I am currently showing you right now is my my professional trader certification through my Forex funds or Traders Global Services. A couple of the accounts that I currently day trade right now, and I am sharing this only to say again, this is not the way, but it is a way. And I have built some tools, and I would suggest that you give me an opportunity to walk you through a fast track challenge to start your own trading career. Again, the education is invaluable. The education is invaluable. And here are some of the things that you would get, right? It's a 21-day boot camp. That means it's 3 weeks long. But inside of this 3 weeks, what it is going to help you to do is it's going to help you to develop a trader's mindset. More importantly, it's going to help you to develop a new mindset, right? We're going to help you to build your desires, your whys, get committed, establish a date, create your mission, your vision, and your own rich already mantra. Why are these things important? It's because our words are life, their power, and what we speak, we attract. Good, bad, or indifferent, it just is what it is. And so we have to develop new relationships with the money that we are working to attract. And the trader's mindset is the best way I found for me. It's working for me. And if you're following my timeline and some of the things that I've been doing, it ain't cat, right? It just ain't, it ain't. Right. And so again, what my passion, my goal, my responsibility to the tribe is to design some practical tools that can be used by others to empower their lives in some shape, form, or fashion. All right. That's all I'm doing. All right. In week 2, you get all of your trading systems. And so I help you to break down the Forex brokers that you're going to use, the trading platforms and the systems that we're going to execute and trade on, the charting systems so that you can trade like a pro, putting it all together, the system integration, showing you actually how to push the buttons, and then the demo day, right, where you are actually now in a live environment or a virtually live environment. And you get an opportunity to push those buttons and, just again, to see how this stuff is going to play out. Now that I have all the systems and stuff like that set up for you, guess what? Then I'm going to teach you the fundamentals, right? I'm going to show you how all the tools work first. We're going to get the mindset right. I'm going to show you how all of the tools work, get all the platforms and things like that in place. We're going to do some training, and then I'm going to give you the Forex fundamentals, right? I'm going to give you the history first and tell you all about Forex and all da, 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 da. You know what I mean? Like, nah, we're adult learners, right? And so I need to make this thing as tactile as possible for you. And then once you understand how to push the buttons, I can then add the software, right? Which is the Forex foundations, the launch, the technical, the orbit, and the beyond sections. And that's another 5 days. But then after that, you graduated. You are good to go. So if you're interested, what I would suggest is that you hit me up. I got my phone number down there at the bottom. You can also DM me as well. I'm available, but we've got to get going, man. We've got to turn this corner. We've got to turn the corner. And I know for many years we probably have been like, man, this is my year. I'm telling you, this year I'm getting ready to do it. I'm getting ready to change my life. God is going to come in and he's going to bless me. Well, what I'm sharing with you is that we've got to take massive action in order for any of this stuff to happen. And we have to do it collectively as a community. You cannot get successful. You cannot be successful by yourself on your own island. We have tried that year after year after year, and we see what happens, right? Community is what works. And it's time for us to get back to that. All right. So leave me a comment. Let me know what you think. This material, the series that I'm going to be rolling out, is my goal is to just make sure that I keep it as action-packed, jam-packed as possible with information that that pertains to what currently is happening in the market, how it relates to you, and then providing you some information so that you can do the same thing, take advantage like I've taken advantage, and continue to take advantage of the markets, preparing for the changes that are on the horizon. All right. So I wanted to give you some information, some details, and that's it. That's all for right now, team. This is Beatles. This is M3RD.org. Make sure you go there. Make sure that you hit me up on Instagram at Mr. Beatles. That's at Mr. Beatles, but M3RD.org. M3RD.org is where you can go and find more about what we're doing. All right. Stay wealthy, stay healthy, stay happy. We out.